What is going on? Wise Guy here. Today I'm going to be showing you how to install League of Legends on Ubuntu 16.04. Without further ado, let's get started. So first and foremost this is a completely clean install of Ubuntu 16.04. I'm running this in a VirtualBox as I have all of the dependencies and everything already installed on my main machine, and I wanted to do this from a completely fresh and clean install. The graphics drivers that I'm running are the open source Mesa drivers, which come packaged with Ubuntu 16.04. I don't recommend trying to install, if you have an AMD graphics card, the proprietary drivers. I haven't found them to ever work, and in fact I find them to be very problematic with Xorg and all those kinds of things. They generally cause my system to become unbootable. I have to drop into a root shell and actually remove them by hand to get my system to actually boot up again. So, without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing that we're going to need to install is an application called PlayOnLinux. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to come and open the web browser of choice. For me, because this is a completely clean install, this is going to be Firefox. Alright, cool. So once we've got Firefox open, what we're going to do is we are going to navigate to the website PlayOnLinux.com. The next thing that we're going to do is we are going to go to I'd like to download PlayOnLinux. We're going to go to the download page just here, and we're going to choose Ubuntu for our distribution. If, for example, you have, say, Arch Linux or Debian or Fedora or Frugalware, I don't know anyone running Frugal, but if you are, that's totally cool. You can download from there. If you're a more advanced user, and you know how to compile things on Linux, you can go ahead and actually clone their repository and try and build their source code against the required dependencies that they need for PlayOnLinux. So, once we head over to here, we're going to be using for Ubuntu 16.04 the 14.04 binaries. They work perfectly fine. But essentially what we're going to do is we're going to install the trusty version. So go ahead and open up a terminal. So we're going to type in terminal. And we're just going to use the standard terminal. We're not going to use Xterm or anything. And as you can see, I'm actually running under VirtualBox there. So I'm just going to clear all that out because first time I've run. And we're going to say wget-q. And actually, you know what? We're just going to copy and paste it. So the way to copy and paste into a terminal, if you don't know under Linux, is just copy this line here. So copy it line by line. We'll say Control-C. We'll go back to our terminal here and we'll say Control-Shift-V, and that will cleanly paste into the terminal the command which you need to run. We'll hit enter and we will type in our password. Alright, so after entering your sudo password, which should be the same password as your account which you installed Ubuntu Linux with, the next thing we're going to need to do is paste in this line here, and you won't have to enter in your sudo password again. Alright, cool. Then what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to run sudo apt-get update, which will basically pull in all of the new available packages from the new repositories which you just added to your aptitude list. So we'll say Control-Shift-V, even though I could have just typed that out. Alright, and then finally what we're going to do is type in sudo apt-get install PlayOnLinux. Now I'm just going to copy and paste this again. And we'll say yes. And I've probably cut a lot of this stuff up in post-production, so we'll be back in just a tick. Alright, so that took quite a long time at 14 kilobytes a second to download about 800 megabytes. The reason it took so long was because for some reason VirtualBox networking sucks, but anyway. So the next thing you're going to need to do is accept the EULA for the TTF MS Core Fonts installer. So just go ahead and press tab on your keyboard and then press OK, and then we'll scroll over to yes, and I'm assuming that you read that. That is your responsibility for reading that, but I'm sure that you read it because, as everyone does, we always read the EULA of everything, and then what's going to happen is it's going to go ahead and unpack everything, prepare everything, and just do all of the dependency management and all that kind of stuff that it needs to do to get PlayOnLinux working. So we'll be back in just a tick when that actually happens. Alright, so the next thing that we're going to need to do is actually open up PlayOnLinux. So go over to your start menu, search for PlayOnLinux, and we're going to choose PlayOnLinux just here. Alright, cool. So the next thing we're going to do is click on this install button, and what it's going to do is actually install a list of programs in which you can use PlayOnLinux to help you install on your computer. I should just say that PlayOnLinux is, for those of you who know what Wine is or haven't heard of Wine, maybe you have, maybe you haven't. Basically, PlayOnLinux is a configurator for Wine applications. So it kind of helps you do all the nitty-gritty stuff to do with actually installing things on under Wine. Oftentimes there's a lot of like tinkering and stuff that we used to have to do back in the day, and PlayOnLinux kind of does all of that via scripting and all that kind of stuff. So we'll be back once PlayOnLinux actually installs its list of available applications. Alright, so once that's done, you should get a little search box up here, and you should get this, you should basically get a screen that looks like this. Now, if the testing box isn't already checked, make sure that it's checked. So what we're going to do is we're going to search for League of Legends, and it comes up under League of Angels too. So go ahead and click that, and we're going to click Install. It says this program is currently in testing, blah, 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 your feedback. Now, they haven't actually updated their description, but they have kept update the packages and scripts that help this actually work. So what we'll do is we'll click Next. We'll click Next. Next. And you'll get this little spinny thing here, so then you get what looks like the League of Legends installer. It's sort of like a hacked version of the installer, but nonetheless, just click Next. Alright, now, since we don't have the setup actually downloaded on our computer, and it's best to let PlayOnLinux download the installer that it can use to actually get the game on the hard drive physically. Don't worry about updating, the updater works just fine, but just let PlayOnLinux use the version that it wants to use. So hit Next, and select the installer to download. I'm in Oceania, but you can just choose the North American one and change regions, fine, it doesn't actually matter. So, we'll wait for this, and we'll be back when the download is actually completed. Alright, so once it's finished downloading, it's going to go through a whole bunch of automated steps. As I kind of said in my last video, this is a fairly easy install, and most of the complex stuff happens completely invisibly behind the scenes, like it would on the Windows installer when they have to pull dependencies in, whatever else. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is Microsoft fonts aren't installed. You may or may not have them from other Wine applications or Wine tricks. If you don't, if this is a completely fresh install or you've never done any Linux gaming like this or whatever, then it's going to tell you need to install them. So what you're going to do is click Next here. You're going to agree to the licensing. Basically, it just says that they have no responsibility for you, but you can't redistribute them, all that kind of stuff. And so you hit Next, and it's going to download the Windows MS Core fonts and all those kinds of things that the game requires to display properly in the client. Now, just a heads up, I don't know what's going to happen when the Electron client comes out. I will, of course, be making that work for me, and I'll have a video to actually, if it doesn't work straight out of the box, I'll make a video to how to get around that kind of stuff. As a League of Legends player, I find that very important to get that to work, so I will be finding ways of getting that to work, and I'll make a video for you guys. So I'm just going to wait for this to download, and we'll be back again. Alright, so once all of the downloads have finished that PlayOnLinux wants to download and install, you'll be presented with a screen that looks something like this. So after you do, obviously just click Next, and it'll say please wait while League of Legends is installed. You'll then get a setup screen which looks something like this, and then you'll get into the actual unhacked League of Legends installer. So go ahead and press Next, I accept, Next, complete, and then click Install. This shouldn't take too long, but I will pause the video and we'll come back once this is completed. Alright, once the installer has finished, you'll be presented with the League of Legends install. It looks like this. It is really crucially important that you uncheck Launch League of Legends at this point in time. So go ahead and uncheck it and then click Finish. You'll be presented back to the PlayOnLinux screen, where PlayOnLinux will continue to do its various configurations and run scripts behind the scenes, so that it can get the League of Legends patcher to actually work exactly how you would expect it to on Windows. So I'll be back when that actually is completed. So as you can see here, the League of Legends installer is currently starting up. I'm running in a virtual machine, bear that in mind, so everything is happening a lot slower, even though I've dedicated 4 cores to it. Everything virtualized is always slower, even if I was running the game under Windows virtualized. But as you can see, it is inching along here. Once this is completed, you'll get the original patcher, which will open up, and you will be able to continue patching League of Legends to the current version of League of Legends. So we'll be back to finish off the installation in just a moment. Alright, so once we've done that, go ahead and close League of Legends, and let's head back over to PlayOnLinux. So the first thing we're going to do is highlight the League of Legends thing, Then we're going to click on Configure, and we're going to go over to the Miscellaneous tab. So go ahead and click on that, and we're going to choose Mouse Warp Override, and we're going to set that to Enabled, sorry. So go ahead and drop that down, and we're going to say Enable. The next thing that we're going to need to do is head over to the General tab, and we're going to go and install a new version of Wine. So where it says Wine version, and make sure that the League of Legends drop down here is selected, go ahead and click the plus button, and we'll get this thing which says Available Versions of Wine, and we're going to scroll down until we find 1.9.2 staging-lol3. So go ahead and click that across, and this is a slightly modified version of Wine specific for League of Legends. So go ahead and press next, and what it's going to do is download the version of Wine that we need. Alright, so once that's done, the window will close and we will end up in a version that looks something like this. So you can go ahead and we can actually close that down now, and what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Wine version here, and we're going to change this to staging lol3. Now, what it's going to say is it's going to terminate everything on this virtual drive, so go ahead and press yes, as we need it to kill everything that's already running. And the configurator is going to run, and it looks like it's run successfully, so let's go ahead and we can actually run this. So we'll go and press run on this, and you'll get a little dialog that says that the Wine configuration is being updated, and that's just because we've changed through PlayOnLinux its Wine configuration to use the new staging version specifically for it. It's going to ask you for the Wine Gecko installer. You do need to install this for the shop and stuff to work correctly, so go ahead and press download, and we'll be back once this has downloaded and installed. Alright, so once Gecko is installed, you'll be presented with the review this disclaimer, which is obviously the standard disclaimer thing which Riot provides. So go ahead and click on accept. Now, this may crash the launcher a few times. Once you accept the EULA, things will start to take shape and it will no longer crash. For me, in the virtual machine, it crashed 3 times after installing that. Before I got it to work, I didn't do anything, I just relaunched it 3 times. The reasoning is basically because it's still configuring things in the background, or you can just wait a little while and see what happens. This didn't happen to me on my native machine, so I can't exactly say what will happen on your configuration, but it shouldn't crash once, or if it does crash once, just relaunch it and it'll be fine. So the next thing that we're going to need to do is to click launch. Alright, so as some of you are aware, VirtualBoxes can only go so far as in terms of graphics and stuff like that. The bugging out was caused by the VirtualBox itself, so I've decided to jump over to my native machine now that all the setup is actually done, and I'll show you the last little bit of configuration that I've done that I didn't see in any guides on the internet or anything. But what's going to happen is once you press launch, it's going to discover that you need to patch, and the patching will take you about an hour, 2 hours, depending on your internet connection. It's a little bit slower than patching on Windows, but I mean, it's not too bad. I didn't have any hookups or anything like that. It all went all the way through. It just took quite a long time to actually do. After that, the game is successfully installed and you can play it. However, there's some extra configuration that I would recommend doing right now. Alright, so what you're going to want to do is jump into PlayOnLinux, go into Configure, make sure that we are configuring League of Legends. The next thing we're going to want to do is go to Wine and click on Configure Wine. PlayOnLinux is going to open up the configurator with that specific Wine configuration. Next, what we're going to do is we are going to go over to Graphics, and we're going to change some settings here. So make sure that your settings emulate mine. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that automatically capture the mouse in full screen window is checked. Allow Window Manager to decorate the windows. Allow Window Manager to control the windows. And the most important one here is the Emulate Virtual Desktop. So once you click that, change the desktop size to your maximum screen resolution, and that will make sure that League of Legends appears in full screen even though it's really not. This gets around some seriously weird bugs that I had with full screening and accidentally alt-tabbing, and that crashes the game. That actually solved that problem for me. As far as libraries, applications, just make sure that your Windows version is Windows XP. There's some very strange things that happen in that configuration. It seems to be that everyone who develops Wine just kind of used that label and crammed all the updates into that. So all the new Windows emulation versions don't really work for League of Legends. It just crashes it. Everything else is exactly as PlayOnLinux set it up. So, alright, so finally, let's jump back into game, and this isn't actually to do with installation. Installation is now complete, so if you stuck around this far, thank you very much. So I'm just going to show you some workarounds in the client. In fact, there's only one workaround I need to show you, besides the one that's on the screen now. So you're going to get this one, for at least I get this one every time that the client launches. Wait a few seconds before you click OK, or the client will time out and actually close. After that, you can just click OK. So, the only workaround that I need to show you is how the shop works. And so, to get into the shop, there's this weird authentication bug that's kind of been known since the dawn of Linux gaming and League of Legends, kind of merged into one, thing. Anyway, so the way to get around that is we go into our profile here, then we go into we go into champions, and click on any champion that you want. So, for example, let's say it's Aurelian Sol, and what will happen is that you'll get this 975, you get basically the cost of it here. Once you get the cost of that there, you know that the shop is working. So you can close this and you can go into the League of Legends store and you can buy whatever you want. It's a little bit bugged, but it does eventually sort itself out. If you wait a couple of seconds, it all looks normal after that. So, as you can see, I can get a mystery champion shard. We'll click influence points and do a transaction. And as you can see, there you go, I bought something. So, thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. I know this was kind of a long video for me. Subscribe, like, dislike, all that good stuff. I really appreciate all the support I've been getting, and I will see you in the next video for the next Rust tutorial. Peace.